Hi, this is Sean. Welcome to Guitar Reference Guide. In today's lesson, I'm going to be taking you through a lesson on how to use intervals to jumpstart melodic ideas when you're improvising. Whether you're playing blues, jazz, bluegrass, whatever it is, we've all gotten to that point where you're just completely out of ideas. You've used all your pentatonic ideas, you've used all your arpeggios, modes, etc. Using intervals is a great way to start thinking differently about creating lines. And one of the most important things about learning the intervals is being able to understand what they sound like and really paying attention to that. In today's lesson, I'm going to be taking you through C major scale. We're going to be looking at it in two different positions, and I'm going to show you how to use a couple of different exercises to go through your seconds, thirds, fourths, fifths, sixths, and sevenths, as well as you're improvising, kind of use them as a starting point, a middle point, or an ending point to create some new interesting melodic ideas. I've created a PDF and a backing track to practice with. If you click the link below, it'll take you to my website. There you can pick up those two things. We have a lot to do, so let's dig in, and I hope you enjoy this lesson. Okay, let's get started. So we have intervals. What is an interval? An interval is the distance between two notes. So if I was going to play an F note and I went up one fret, that would be a half step, also known as a minor second. That would be my F sharp. If I went from F to G, that would be a whole step, and that would be a major second. In today's lesson, we're going to go through the C major scale, be playing in the A position, and I'm going to go through each of the notes of the major scale, and I'm going to explain what the intervals are, how they sound, and I'm going to go through a couple of really cool exercises that's going to help you jumpstart your ideas when you're improvising. All right, so we have our C major scale. Here's my C note, here's my 1, D note is my 2, E note is my 3, F note is my 4, G note is my 5, A note is my 6, B is my 7, then we're back to where I started. That's my octave. So each one of those notes takes that interval name. So this would be my 1, the D would be my major second, and that would be my 2. That's what the second interval sounds like. So if I play those two notes together, it would sound like this. So anywhere I see a C and a D, that's going to be what a major second sounds like. Now if I move to the next note, which is my E, this would be my major third. And that's what a major third sounds like. So I'm playing a C and an E at the same time. And if you look at the relationship on guitar, the beauty of guitar is they have these physical relationships that always stay the same. So when you're on the A string and the D string, whenever you see these two notes next to each other like that, that's always a major third. Now I'm going to move to the next note. That's going to be my F. Now if I play the C and the F, that's going to be my fourth. Now this is a major third. This is a fourth. And the next one will be a fifth. So if I go to my G, that will be my fifth. Synonymous with power chords. Triads have a 1, 3, and 5, or 1 flat, 3, and 5. Both of them have a 5. Then I'm going to go to the 6, which is going to be my A. It's my relative minor. So when I play a C and an A, that's what that sounds like. That's what a 6th sounds like. Then I'm going to go to my 7th, which is a B and a C playing those two things together. So now I'm playing the 4th fret of the G, 3rd fret of the A, and that's the sound of a 7th. That's a major 7th. And this is a major 6th. Now I move to my octave, and that's the same note. So if I play through each one of those notes one at a time, it's going to sound like this. Major second, major third, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and octave. Now, if I was to start by just working on thirds, and I go through the scale, and I start from each one of those notes in the scale and I go to its respective third, in other words, I skip the second note, it's going to sound something like this. There's C to E, that's my third. My D to my F is going to be my minor third. It's my minor third because this would always be a major third. So if I move this down, that would be my minor third, and that's what a minor third sounds like. So I have major third, minor third. It's going to correspond to the harmonized major scale, the way the chords work in a key. Then I'm going to go to my E, and that's going to be my minor third. F, major third. G, major third. A, minor third. B, minor third. And back to where we started at C. So the scale exercise in thirds would sound like this. Then if I go backwards, I'm skipping the second, and I'm moving right to the third. And if I do the second octave, now I'm going to go in reverse order. Thirds. So if you were playing through a song, say I loop something real quick. I'm going to loop this chord progression real quick. What I was playing in the jam track. So this is a C, A minor, D minor, G, 1, 6, 2, 5. So I'm playing over it. And let's try some thirds. As you can see, it works really well. They work great. You can hear them on a lot of different things. One more time. Okay, so now we're going to look at fourths. Fourths are going to sound like this. Now, fourths have a more ambiguous sound. A perfect fourth is basically in between a fifth and a third. And it's going to be broken down like this. So I'm going to start with my C to my F, my D to my G, my E to my A. This is going to be my flat 5. So those were all fourths. My F to my B is a flat 5. And then my G to my C. So the only one that's different here is this one where we have the flat 5. That's because of the way the intervals land within the key. So if I go backwards, there's my flat 5. And that would be fourths. Now if I did the second octave, it would sound like this. I'll go in the other direction. fourth, 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 fourth. So when you look at the pentatonic scale, there's a lot of force in the pentatonic scale if we were to just look at these notes, the way they relate to one another. From the C note to the G note, that's a fourth. The A note to the E note, that's a fourth. The G note again to the D, that's a fourth. But this is a third. So we have fourth, 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 third. This would be a fourth. 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 This would be a third, major third. And that will be a fourth. So that's a great thing to practice when you're playing a pentatonic scale, doing the fourths like that. Now it's really important to understand how these things sound. So if I listen to my fourths and I go all the way up, here's my standard fourth, C to F. Fourth has a very ambiguous sound. It's not really major or minor. And then this is where it gets a little bit different. We have the flat five, that's a lot more dissonant. So if we listen to all these, the only one that has that really dissonant sound to it is the flat five. And if I go higher up on the neck, you'll hear the same thing, this relationship. Here's my fourth, fourth. Here's my sharp four or my flat five. All of a sudden, there's the flat five. So the flat five has a lot more dissonance built into it. So that's something to think about when you're playing. The sound is very important. Okay, so now we're going to dig into fifths. A great way to practice doing this is to literally play up to the fifth and then play the interval. So if I start with my C, my fifth is going to be G. If I just play through the exercise, it'll sound like this. A great way to practice that is to literally play the scale up to the fifth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then go back to the place where you started, in this case on the C. Then I'm going to go to my D. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. From the E. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 is like the power chord. From the F. From the F. From the G. And there's my flat five. Keep going. Now if I go backwards, you can do the same thing here. playing over, if I was playing over something, if I hit this. Or the other direction. See, it's a big interval jump. Okay, so now we're going to do 6. You've heard this a million times, Sam and Dave. There's too many songs to list. I mean, the list goes on. But when you're improvising, it tends to have a different kind of sound. The intervals are really big. So here we go, key of C, and here is the 6. Go backwards. Now, if you were improvising, a great way to use the 6 is to use it as a starting point for a line. So it works really good if you start high and then you go low and then you create the line. Or that was a 7th actually, so if I went here, or and you could go in the other direction. If I went, so that also works really well, is starting the line with a 6. And then the classic double stops you've heard a million times. So that would be 6. Now we're going to move into 7ths. So 7ths are going to sound like this. So another great thing, just like we did before, was playing up to the note, because the intervals are so big to make sure you get it right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7ths in the key of C. That'll be from my C. Now from my D, it's going to go up to C. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. From my E, my F, from my G, from my A, from my B, and then from my C. So the 7s also have a really big, wide sound, and so then they work also really well for playing the line, starting a line with a 7th. Or if I did something like this. Here we go. So 7ths also work really well for doing that same thing. And that would be 7ths. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson in intervals. Sorry, I have to keep turning for the mic. I need to get one of those little things you clip on. Lavalier. Thanks for visiting me at GuitarReferenceGuide.com, and I hope you found this helpful. Using intervals is a great way to spice up your playing. So I hope you got something out of this lesson, and when you're playing, you run into a roadblock, you could start using any one of these to jumpstart some new ideas. Thanks so much for visiting me at Guitar Reference Guide, and have a great day.